Hello all, it's Ruthie and I'm here with Wendy Hamilton, aka Mum, and we're going to be talking today about a subject that's very dear to Mum's heart, and I'm quite fond of it too because I was the grateful recipient of it. Well, actually I wasn't grateful at the time, but I now see how excellent it was. So today I'm going to be asking Mum, how do you keep a child who struggles with the mechanics of reading and writing, like I did, because I have dyslexia, how do you keep a child like that from checking out and thinking that books are not for them when it's so hard? So when they go projecting themselves into the future in their own mind, they think, one day I will be able to read, which is what I did because of how well Mum did her job, as opposed to one day I'll be big and I won't have to deal with this dreadful reading stuff. So Mum, take it away. What do you think the most important thing is?
Well, if I had to say one thing that was the most important thing, it's at all costs protect your child's belief that they can learn. That it doesn't matter what it is. Like I come from a long, as you know,
A lineage. We have a lineage of
dyslexia, and they didn't have it back in my grandfather's day and everything like that. They didn't have a word.
Yeah, they didn't have it, but oh boy did they have it. And Granddad, tell them about how Granddad learned to read.
Oh, my father.
This is such an inspiration.
My father hated school, and when he went to school, he was given a little reader, and when he opened it up, there was absolutely nothing in the middle of it, and it was for the whole year.
Oh, was this a mistake?
It was a mistake.
Oh, they made a mistake. It
made a mistake.
It wasn't that he couldn't see the words.
No, they made a mistake.
Oh my gosh.
So, well, he had other problems as well. But the first year that he was at school, they got like a little, probably it was Janet and John reader back in those days. And when they handed them out, the whole guts of it was missing. And because my father was a very shy, quiet little boy, he didn't want to tell the teacher. So for the whole year, he had nothing in the middle, and obviously his parents weren't involved or they would have spotted it. And at the end of the year, he gave us a little book, he just gave the little cover back, and that was his first year. But even if he had the proper stuff, there would have been a problem because he had severe dyslexia, and when he was so he was not reading at all, and he used to run away from school, and his mother would take him to school, and then he would beat her back home. And every day back in the bad old days, what they used to do is for every spelling mistake that he got, he would be punished. They would wrap him over the hands and everything like that. So
Which is just creating a trauma, really. So
Absolutely.
you already feel stupid, and then you're scared of making the mistake. So your brain's not even free to study. It's like, how can I? Was a case of how can I protect myself?
Absolutely.
So his mind wasn't even thinking about reading.
No,
it was just not getting.
Yeah. So this went on through his school life, and when he got to be and I asked him, I said, Dad, did anyone ever read to you? He said, no, nobody ever read.
I didn't know that.
Nobody ever read to him. So if you get a child that nobody's actually reading to them, they don't see the point of, what's the point of putting in the effort?
So how did Granddad fix it? Because he didn't have you for mother.
Well, interestingly enough, when he was 12, he really, really wanted to read the Bible, and I've just made a correlation with it now. The Bible would have been the one book that he saw read because they were reading brethren, and they went to church every Sunday, and they probably had Bible studies in their home as well, weekly Bible studies. So and his parents read the Bible every day. Like his father would have probably had family devotions.
Actually, I know that's true because Granddad told me that when, because he was a really little boy during the war. How old was he during the war?
About 3, I think.
Yeah, he said he remembers his family sitting around reading the Bible, and they were keeping themselves going by reading the Bible. So
that's right. So anyway, that would have been the one book he would have seen read, and he was very devout from age 3. He became a Christian when he was age 3, and he was very interested in the Bible.
And a very Bible-centric home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there are different kinds of Christianity, but our family's always had a really strong emphasis on the Bible, because that's the thing, you get these different kinds of Christianity, and ultimately there are branches of Christianity that are more interested in the religious leader, and there are branches of the Christian religion which are more interested in what does the Bible actually say. And we've always been, well, it goes back hundreds of
Hundreds
years.
of years. I suspect to the Plymouth Brethren.
Yeah, we suspect.
And you know, the American Plymouth Brethren, certainly to the 16th century.
Before they went to America, right?
Yeah, before they went to America.
Probably we fought with William Bradford.
Yeah, that's probably
we have a stubborn streak.
Yeah.
We have a stubborn streak.
So anyway, he wanted to read the Bible. So when he was 12, he got his Bible and he taught himself to read through reading the Bible. And interestingly enough, I remember you said when you were teaching English as a second language that the Chinese or some of the people with the second language, they said that there was one lady, she said the Bible, when she was reading the Bible, it really helped her.
It was easy.
Yeah, she said it was easy.
I was shocked because I was like, really? That's not what I would call it. I don't know. Personally, I think there's something supernatural.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's how he started. That's how he started reading. But it goes, you know,
which demonstrates how far back this dyslexia problem goes, and it probably goes back beyond that.
Oh, it does. Look. I wrote this book, To Own a Fig Tree. And because I didn't know much about my background until I wrote this. And, you know, it goes back to...
What's the book about?
Oh, this is about the Johnson family, which I come from, and how they were... came over on Julius Vogel's assisted passage to New Zealand.
From the Shetland Isles.
From the Shetland Isles.
And did you say there's something in there about this whole reading problem?
Yeah, there was just a little snippet, but of course I picked up on it because it's such a family trait. And there was a guy called Robert Johnson, and he was a captain, and he was writing to Parliament. That is another thing that, you know, these dyslexic ones would still try and write to Parliament and stuff like that. And he was writing about the problem with the sandbar in Karamea, and it said in the diary sort of things, it said, you know, with Robert's severe trouble with spelling and that, he still wrote it all out in copperplate handwriting and everything. Oh, I'll tell you this story though, this is funny. My mother, now she comes from the other side of the branch of the family, which...
The minority. The genetics are not winning from that side.
We have a book about them too, shipwrecks and bush spelling, and this guy, George Richard Meredith, he came, he was a sailor at 11, and he came in 1834, and he came out to New Zealand, and it comes up in his biography that he actually wrote a manuscript that I based this book on 100 years ago.
And he married the daughter of a Scottish poet who was constantly winning the, something like the
Gaelic poetry prizes.
He was so good, they kicked him out of the competition. They're like, no, we will not, no, none of the other poets would go into the competition if he was in it. So we have this very literary side, and that side can actually spell, and although we can write, good luck with the spelling.
Oh. So my mother was a crackpot speller. She was great.
Crackpot doesn't sound good.
Oh no, it doesn't.
She was very good.
She was really, really good. And so she just knew she could not marry a man that could not spell. Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, she saw in the youth group, she saw this handsome man called Arthur Johnson.
And he was quite a looker.
He was. And she thought he was absolutely dreamy. And they started they'd known each other for a while, but only in the room, you know. They started courting. And Dad wrote Mum a whole series of letters. Wow, Mum was so impressed.
Did he use a dictionary?
No. And she was so impressed, she thought, oh, this Arthur Johnson is so intelligent. He uses all
He's a
these...
genius.
He's a genius. He uses all these big words I've never seen in my life.
Sister, I thought I had a good vocabulary, but this Arthur Johnson, oh, he knows words I never heard of.
So she was just enamored with it. She thought, wow. And it wasn't until after they were married she realised the spelling was so bad that she didn't even recognise the attempts at the word.
And he was just using perfectly normal English words, and he was just giving them the Johnson flair.
Exactly. So
it runs deep. But,
really
you know,
deep.
here's the thing. Thank God for new technology, you know, because there are so many excellent spell checks, and there are editing services, and there are a lot of things you can do for people like us to produce polished manuscripts, which really is important because it leads back to the point of it's possible to get a child who can't spell, but they have an ability to write.
Yes.
And it's possible to get a child who's struggling with reading, but they have an enormous appetite for stories. How do you keep a kid wanting to go to books when it's such a struggle to read?
Well, the first thing is you've got to read to them.
Yeah.
If they don't know, a child doesn't naturally know that within the pages of a book, there's actually a story. So you've got to start opening the book and from a young age and read to them.
So would you, because I never thought of this, like actually I think I can probably guess the answer because of what you did. Do you think it's important not to exasperate children with really boring books?
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes I see some of the books being written for children, and I hear this a lot, oh, you can't get children to read, it's the iPhone. And then I look at the books people are trying to put in front of children, and I'm like, you wouldn't sit down and read that.
They're books, general books, you will see it, and they're supposed to be informative, and they have these little snippets of information in little boxes.
Mm-mm.
And
you hate boxes.
I hate little boxes, and my worst one is with the teaching things is where they have learning aims and objectives.
Because I don't think I've seen one of those.
Oh,
you just saved me.
I did. I need you so much. I never had those.
I don't even know what she's talking about, but it sounds really gross.
I never had those in my home. They're supposed to be good for teaching, but they're terrible. So I would be very selective of getting books that kids really enjoyed. I think it helped that although I definitely had dyslexia as a kid, I was mildly affected in that I was an early and prolific reader. Yeah. But the spelling was something else I didn't get.
We're still waiting for it to come right.
Oh, yes. Oh, my computer. But I used to read a lot when I was a child, and we had a big variety. We read a lot of those English books, because back in the day...
We're like the British diaspora, really.
Yeah, back in the day, the children's books, the only ones you could really get were English.
I was 16 before I realised it's actually all right to set a story in a place other than England.
Oh, I know, I was like that as a child too.
It was like mind blowing that you could actually set it other than England, and that you could write it somewhere other than a castle or a thatched cottage.
I know.
Although why would you? I mean, it's still a pretty good setting.
But so. As a child, I read heaps of books and read all through the classics, like Charles Dickens and Black Beauty and Pride and Prejudice.
Not Shakespeare though. You never.
No, I know. We did Shakespeare at school, and it was awful.
They did it wrong because they made you read it, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
You need to watch it because I've been watching it on YouTube. It's so good. You'd love Hamlet. You'd love Hamlet.
See, a lot of how.
And we did have the King James Bible.
Yeah, we did.
A lot. And you know what's interesting about the King James Bible is, so King James, who commissioned that Bible, he was the monarch after Queen Elizabeth I, and she was alive during Shakespeare, I think, right? So it's very, very similar. So, it's not hard. You won't struggle with it.
Yeah.
It's not actually hard to understand.
I think a lot of knowledge often is how it's dished up as to whether you perceive whether it's interesting or relevant.
Plays.
Yeah, so they should
People
be
weren't going to
plays.
the Globe and being handed little pieces of paper and told, now read this and then you're going to be tested on. No one would have gone. He would have gone out of business.
I mean, how many Netflix movies would we watch if they just handed us the script?
Oh, we wouldn't.
No, we wouldn't.
We just wouldn't. There'd be no Netflix.
Yeah.
It would be a very sad day for Netflix.
What was the question again?
Oh, the question was, I think you've covered it, how do you get a child that's struggling with the mechanics of reading to actually like books? And it seems to me that what you're saying is make sure you're reading to them.
Yeah.
Make sure you're reading nice stuff to them.
Yeah.
The other thing I think you were really good at is you utilised very beautiful picture books that had a lot of detail, because detail can feel like a very detailed illustrator can keep a child's eye roving in the pages more than a simple illustrator, which in some ways I think is sort of setting them up for the reading process.
It's called reading readiness. That there's if you have books, you need to have books in your home too.
You do.
A lot of houses don't have, this is strange to me, but a lot of houses do not have books in their home. You've got to have books in your home, you've got to have them in a low place where kids can get hold of them. Beautiful picture books like, the Church Mouse series and everything. And I love this. This is got no words in it whatsoever.
And it's hold it up to the camera.
It's just like beautiful Victorian things, and a child will just sit there and just look at it and everything like that.
We don't really know where you could get one of those, but it's certainly a concept you can be looking
Oh,
for.
yeah. Like even those Where's Wally books.
Maybe I should make one. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Just which way you turn the pages is actually a skill.
Can I have that book for a minute?
Yeah.
So the other thing, we used to go to this patchwork shop because Mum did a lot of patchworking when I was a kid, called Bramble Cottage, and they had a really lovely little book selection, and one of the books was like this, and it had no words, it just had a lot of pictures. And what I remember doing while Mum was looking at the different fabrics is I would just go through it and I would just tell myself in my head different stories about the pictures, which is actually another way you can use these kind of books because it sort of leads into the writing aspect. And I said to Mum, one thing I think she did really well with the homeschooling, and she didn't even remember this, which is strange because it was very impactful for me, is although she did dictation and she expected me to learn how to write, which was a miserable process, miserable for both of us, she also allowed me to dictate to her, which meant that I could tell stories from a young age without being wrecked by the process. Because if you're trying to be creative, I mean, even now, even now, think about it, if you sent someone you really loved a handwritten letter, even, as an adult, you've got, you're married, you've got kids, you've got a beautiful home, you're very established. If that person sent that back to you with every word you wrote wrong ringed and read,
you'd never do it again.
You'd never do it again, and you wouldn't forget it. So
No.
I think, but of course you do need to, there is a certain amount you need to do when you're educating a child, because we live in a literate society.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to do that in some ways, but they don't have to ring it, you can be subtle about these things. But what Mum did that was so brilliant is she never made me wait until I had the mechanics of writing done to get into the process of telling a story. So Mum, it was a very two-way street. She gave me dictation, which was awful for both of us. And she let me give her dictation, and then she would read back what I had written, and Mum's always been very good at reading, and I'd be like, oh, that sounds really good. And then Mum would be like, oh, it is really good, you're really good at writing. And then I'd be like, oh, one day I'm going to be able to write this all by myself, instead of thinking I hate writing, I'm so stupid, I can't spell anything. And there was plenty of evidence that I was stupid and I never would be able to write anything, but thanks to Mum, I didn't realise that. So I think what you're saying is the main thing is protect the heart and the belief of the child.
Protect the belief in the child that they can learn. And protect it in yourself too. That if you have someone that's got severe dyslexia, which my last child did have, it might take them till they're 20 till they're reading.
But he is very, very smart.
Yeah.
He's very smart.
Yes, he's very, because if you have a child that is highly dyslexic, this is not a problem. The only problem it is for somebody's going to suffer.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to suffer. It's either the child,
Someone's ego
is
going to be impaled. When you involve dyslexia into the situation in a literate society, and let's be honest, a pretty competitive society where people are like, well, my child's reading the New York Times at only 2.5. If you add dyslexia, somebody's ego is going to get impaled.
Somebody's ego's got to suffer.
Yeah.
And it is better that the mother's ego suffers.
Yeah.
And I, because I homeschool too, I've saved so many teachers.
You did.
It's such a nightmare.
You did.
And that, but I want to make it clear here that dyslexia is not an illness.
No.
And it's not something that's bad. What it is you've got to take it as a package deal. I don't have statistics on this, but I do know within my own family that I would say that dyslexia is highly connected with extremely creative people.
It is.
And do you remember when you were doing the floristry?
I do remember that. It was well known among florists that, people aren't going to get annoyed about this, but it was, I'm not going to say it's true, okay? It was sort of floristry law that, law is and law
Folklore.
Folklore. I was about to try and spell it, and then I realised how horribly that could go. That the more creative the florist, the more likely they were going to need to use a dictionary when they were writing out their little cards to go out to, because you fill out cards with the bouquet. So there did appear to be a correlation. I'm not going to say it's an absolute true thing, because of course there are people who can spell and they can arrange flowers beautifully, and of course there are creative people who can also spell, and we should all be so lucky. You have our absolute envy. But I will also say that for people who are very creative and you can't spell, well, what an age to be alive.
Oh, there's so many things that help you. I mean,
so many things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of the problem with my inability to spell, and even now, if I had to write something handwritten,
pneumonia.
Oh gosh. And then they used to say at school, look every word up that you're unsure of in the dictionary, Wendy.
Well, that's a short story.
That was all of them. That was all of it.
Didn't you have some little girl who used to scream your spelling mistakes out over your shoulder?
Oh gosh, yes, I had that so many times. And
sounds hideous.
Oh yeah, it was. And I came to the conclusion I could never amount to anything because I couldn't spell. So that I wouldn't amount to anything in life because I couldn't spell. So I really wanted to protect my children from that erroneous belief.
I don't think it was good for Dad either. I think he had...
Oh no. No, your father, your kids are pedigree dyslexic.
Look at me, pedigree lineage of dyslexia. Woohoo.
Well, he came out of school, not reading well.
Thinking he was dumb.
And he felt he was really, really stupid, but he went on.
And he's got 2 master's degrees in science, and the only reason he didn't get the PhD is because Wall Street went down and there was no more funding.
Yeah, so, it was, I didn't want you kids to have that big belief system that you were thick and ignorant because you were wired creatively. I mean, to this day, I think a lot of the reason why I find it very difficult to spell is that I don't actually see what's in words.
Yeah.
I just see the general over thing, boom, 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 boom.
The other thing is,
who cares what order they are?
We've got such a hodgepodge of languages contributing, and we only get taught to decode a certain amount of those words. I mean, yeah, we can actually probably decode quite a lot of words, but when it comes to Anglo-Saxon, but the French ones, what? And they do not teach French in New Zealand.
No, they don't.
And they certainly don't teach Latin.
Well, the French word too, I wouldn't even know where to start with the dictionary because I probably wouldn't know what the beginning letter was.
No, we don't know how to sound it out. So I think this is also a contribution. And
but I tell you what, those little Google things.
Oh, they're
where
great.
you say pneumonia into the thing.
Oh, do you know what's something even better?
What?
You can get a article in a different language,
Yeah.
and you can just stick your finger on the word you don't understand, and it immediately tell you what it is with pronunciation.
Oh, I like that.
No, it's a great time to be
It is a
alive.
really good time to be
It's
alive.
not totally perfect, but there are
Yeah.
blessings to be counted. So it sounds to me like you did it well. I thought Mum did an absolutely great job at educating us. Not so much because I think I'm a brilliant genius, because there's still plenty of evidence that I am not. But I'm a very undamaged non-genius.
That was the plan.
I'm an undamaged non-genius. And if people want to know more about your homeschooling methods, or in fact how to just sort of be sensitive to their children, because of course, parents are still lumped with with homework.
Yeah.
So you have a book or
I
something?
do. Well, what I did was that I did write about what our homeschool was like because
I hold it up to the camera so they can see it.
Because I didn't go through the...
You can come back now, they've seen it.
Okay. So because I didn't go through the normal pattern of putting my children into school, because I felt that I didn't want them damaged. And when I look at it, Ruth and John in particular, the other two, the Middleys, they probably would have been mediocre. But I think that Ruth and John, the more creative ones, would have been put in remedial everything.
Oh, yeah.
And they would have come out really thinking that they were really dumb. And I didn't want that. So I felt that I needed to suck up the suffering myself and really protect their belief that they could learn. So,
Well, I think you did a great
so
job.
I wrote about it.
It's called Eating a Light Bulb Doesn't Make You Bright. And we won't be going into it today, but someone did actually eat a light bulb. So, and they didn't live to tell the tale. They lived and Mum told the tale. So if you're interested, you can get, I've got my copy too. Eating a Light Bulb Doesn't Make You Bright, Light on Homeschooling by Wendy Hamilton. But as I say, you're all homeschooling to some degree with kids because you have to do the homework. And it's just a very encouraging read. And you can get that on Amazon, wherever good books are sold, and also at our website, zealouspublishing.com. Thank you so much for joining me and Wendy, aka Mum, with our little chat. And hope you have a lovely week, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.